So you're thinking about NextT Insurance for your small business, right? I get it. Their ads are everywhere online these days. Everybody and their cousin seems to be promising hassle-free insurance.
Yeah, you can't miss them.
Exactly. But is NextT all it's cracked up to be? Well, that's what we're diving into today.
Let's do it.
We're taking a close look at this really in-depth review from Thrive X Nana. They're known for giving really solid, no-nonsense financial advice. And this review, well, it doesn't disappoint. They get into all the nitty-gritty details, which is what you really need, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're making big decisions about your business.
Absolutely. You don't want to mess around with that.
No, you really don't. So the review starts by laying out NXT's big selling points. And I got to say, they are, at first glance, they sound pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Their whole process, getting your quote, managing your policy, everything, it's all 100% digital.
And that's a big deal. That's really what sets NXT apart, you know? They're really tapping into this need for speed and efficiency. And in today's world, especially for us busy entrepreneurs, I mean, who's got time to waste on paperwork, right? Or waiting on hold? Ugh, forget about it. That's all time you could be spending building your business.
That's very true. And on top of that, they're really pushing this idea of customized coverage. So you're not stuck with some cookie cutter policy that doesn't actually fit your needs.
Sounds pretty great so far, right?
Does sound pretty great.
Yeah.
But, and there's usually a but, how well does this whole digital first, super customizable approach actually work in real life? Are there any downsides that maybe we're not thinking about?
That's the million-dollar question. On paper, it all looks fantastic. But when we're talking customization, you got to watch out for the fine print, right? Because what sounds like a really comprehensive policy at first glance could have some pretty significant caveats hidden away in the details.
That is such a good point. And speaking of things that sound almost too good to be true, the review really highlights how NetXT, you know, they love to advertise their super fast quotes, 24/7 online access to your documents, even bragging about being ranked highly for customer service.
Yeah, they really push that.
There's always a but.
There is. The review also reveals this interesting trend, and it's something that pops up in a lot of the customer feedback, it seems like. While NXT is amazing at speed and convenience, especially up front, their customer service can get a little shaky when it comes to anything more, I don't know, complicated. Right, the more complex issues.
Yes, exactly.
And, you know, that's something we see a lot with these online-only type services. It's super convenient, don't get me wrong, but when you actually need help, you know, real help, sometimes that personal touch is missing.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that with other services? I'm sure you have.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And it's interesting you say that because it seems some customers have reported running into issues, problems with billing, agents that are, well, let's just say not the most responsive.
Uh-oh.
And even cases of claims being outright denied.
Oh, no.
Which is, you know, that's not exactly the smooth sailing experience that NextT promises in all their marketing materials, is it?
Definitely not. And, you know, that contrast between what NetXT claims and what some customers actually experience, it really makes you wonder, are they, maybe without realizing it, are they prioritizing efficiency? Like maybe at the cost of truly supporting their customers when they need it most?
It's kind of like they say, right?
Yeah.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
But when it comes to insurance, that's not a risk you really want to be taking.
No, not at all. Especially when you think about what could happen, right? Like insurance is supposed to be there to protect you from the unexpected. So when that unexpected thing actually does happen, you really need to know that your insurance company, they've got your back 100%.
100%. And the review, it actually goes into NXT's user experience, which they say is overall pretty good. They talk about how the website and the app are really user-friendly.
Right.
Like, it's easy to find what you need. You can manage your policy. You can even file a claim all online. No need to dig through, like, file cabinets full of paperwork.
Oh, that's definitely a win.
Right.
That tracks with their whole digital first thing. And I can see how for a lot of business owners, that kind of convenience, it's a huge selling point. But, and this is big but, the review, they emphasize this point about really, really carefully reading your policy documents. Because even if the interface is super user-friendly, those details, they matter.
Oh, yeah, because a policy could seem really comprehensive at first glance. But maybe there are some situations or even like types of claims that aren't actually fully covered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to show you what I mean, the review, they give this really interesting example. It's about this customer who accidentally backed their car into a pub.
Oh, no. Oh.
I know, right? So
Mhm.
they caused property damage, there were some injuries, it was a whole thing. Luckily, they did have general liability insurance through NXT, so the damages were covered.
Okay, good.
But can you imagine the stress and the financial burden if they hadn't really sat down and read through their policy? Like, what if they just assumed they were covered for something and it turned out they weren't?
That's a really good point.
Huh.
And it makes me think, can you talk a little bit more about those different types of coverage? Because I feel like a lot of people, myself included, you hear these terms like general liability or professional liability, and you kind of just glaze over.
I hear you. It's easy to get lost in all that jargon. So, general liability insurance, which is what that customer we were talking about had, that's designed to protect businesses from claims of like bodily injury, property damage, anything that's caused by their operations, their products, their employees. So, in that situation with the pub, their general liability coverage would probably kick in and cover stuff like the repairs to the building and any medical bills for the people who got hurt.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about professional liability? What's the difference?
Professional liability is a little different. Sometimes it's called errors and omissions insurance. It's specifically for businesses that provide professional services, like if you're a consultant, a lawyer, an accountant, that kind of thing. It protects them from claims of negligence, mistakes, things like that. So, for example, let's say you're a consultant and you give a client some advice that turns out to be bad advice. And because of that advice, they lose money.
Oh, that's not good.
No. So professional liability insurance, that would be there to help cover the costs of defending yourself if you get sued, and maybe even some of the damages you might have to pay.
Wow. So it's not just about having insurance. It's about having the right kind of insurance for your specific business and the risks that you face.
Exactly. And that's why it can be so helpful to work with an insurance pro. Whether it's an agent, a broker, or even a company like NAXT that has online resources and can give you some guidance, they can help you figure out what your risks are, what your options are, and put together a policy that actually makes sense for you.
That's good advice. Okay, so we've talked about how NetXT is all about convenience and customization. And we've touched on how important it is to actually read and understand your policy details. But let's go back to that customer service thing, because the review, it's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like they're going after a very specific type of entrepreneur, someone who's totally fine with doing everything digitally, someone who, like, speed and efficiency are really important to them.
Right, right. And maybe even enjoys figuring things out on their own.
Exactly. And for those folks, MedXT, it could be great. I'm not saying it's bad, but you're right, it's not going to be the right fit for everybody. Some business owners, especially those who aren't as comfortable with tech, or maybe they just prefer that more personal touch, they might feel like something's missing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because let's be real, insurance, it's not exactly the most fun thing to shop for.
Yeah.
It's not exactly a party. So when you're dealing with something this important, something that affects your business so much, having that reassurance, having someone there to support you, that makes a huge difference.
I completely agree. It really comes down to, what are your priorities? Like, what are your non-negotiables when it comes to insurance? Do you absolutely need to have a dedicated agent that you can call, like, anytime, day or night? Or is it more important for you to have that 24/7 online access, even if it means maybe you don't always get that super personalized service?
That's such a good point. So based on everything ThriveXtina found in their review,
Right.
what are the big takeaways? What are the really important things to keep in mind when you're trying to figure out if NetXT is a good fit for you?
Well, on the plus side, NXT is really, really strong when it comes to convenience and speed, no question about it. Their platform, it's all digital, it's designed to be easy to use, and they've got a ton of customization options, so you can really tailor your coverage to fit your needs. They also have a really solid financial track record, and overall their customer reviews are pretty positive. But, and I know you're hearing this but a lot, but we did talk about those inconsistencies in customer service, and those are definitely something to think about.
Yeah, and it really seems like those inconsistencies, they kind of come back to that balance or maybe imbalance
Yeah.
between technology and actual human interaction.
Exactly. They're using all this great AI and automation to streamline a lot of their services, which makes sense. It's efficient. But just be aware that there might be some limitations there, especially when you're dealing with something more complicated or you just really need that human touch, that empathy, you know, which, let's be honest, when something bad happens, that's what you want.
Yeah, it's almost like A super sleek website and a really easy-to-use app, those are fantastic until you actually have to file a claim, and then you're stuck waiting forever. The agent doesn't know what they're talking about. It's just frustrating.
And nobody wants that.
Not when you're dealing with insurance.
Exactly. It's not that NXT is good or bad. It's about, will this work for me, for my specific situation?
Exactly. And that's what's so great about being informed, about doing your research. There's no magic answer. It's about finding the option that just makes sense for you, for your risk tolerance.
Absolutely. And, while you're out there doing your insurance research, which I know you are.
Of course. Our listeners are the best.
They really are. Remember, don't just take their word for it. Look beyond the fancy marketing, do some digging, read reviews on those independent sites, get quotes from a few different companies. There's no harm in shopping around. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Talk to other business owners in your industry. See what they're doing. Maybe even talk to an insurance professional. Get a second opinion.
It's like anything else. The more informed you are, the better.
100%.
Because really, when it comes down to it, insurance, it's about peace of mind, right? It's about knowing you've got that safety net so you can just focus on what matters. Running your business and growing your business.
That's what it's all about.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, that's about it for our deep dive into NXT Insurance. We hope this has given you some things to think about, some tools to help you make the best decision for your business.
I hope so, too.
Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive into the world around us.